Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. This could also go under the category of boomers being foolish. I was at Costco, standing in line with a very full cart. There were not many checkout counters open, and I got in line behind 3 other people, each with very full carts. The self-checkout area was wide open. After waiting in line for a few minutes, a man from the baby boomer generation, holding a single item, appeared in my peripheral vision. I realized he had gotten in line behind me. He made his presence known through body language and grunts, but never interacted with me, and there were still 2 people in front of me. The cashier at the next till opened and specifically called me over, as the first person in front of me was paying and the second was already unloading. I started to approach the belt, and before I could even turn around to invite the man to move with me and go in front, he started loudly complaining that I should have let him go. The manager who had authorized the additional lane opening told him that they always take the next customer. I turned around and said, "Sir, I would have been happy to let you go, you simply needed to ask me." As far as he knew, I did not even know he was there because he was behind me and never spoke to me or came into my direct view. I knew he was there, but he did not know I knew he was there. He immediately started complaining that he should not have to ask, and that I should have just volunteered. I replied that he did not even give me a chance to do so before he started griping, complaining, and being rude. He said I was rude for going next. I repeated, dumbstruck. "I'm the rude one for taking my own place in line? I was happy to let you go, but you're being so rude and entitled that I didn't even get a chance to offer." I moved back to unpacking my groceries and told him to go ahead, but now he refused on principle. He and my husband exchanged a few words, and the man said I was being rude. My husband asked, "How?" The man replied, "By not giving up her spot." My husband said, "She's free to volunteer to do that, but you expecting her to and getting mad that she didn't is awfully entitled." The man said, "I don't believe in entitlement." Multiple times I told the man to go right ahead while I was unloading, but he kept saying he wouldn't. The cashier, tired of the situation, insisted he check out while I was unloading. Okay, people of Reddit, I thought I'd share a story from when I was younger, and when my children were still young. So this takes place in the summer of 1975. At the time, my sons were 9 and 7. Also, they were in the Cub Scouts. Like most kids, they quickly made friends with the other kids, and as a dad, I made friends with the other dads that volunteered. Most of us got along well with the families, except for the entitled mother and her son. The mother was extremely clueless about her own son and basically refused to parent him. She was more into the lifestyle of a mom, being in mommy groups and spending her husband's money, rather than being a good parent to her son. The dad was a good person but worked a lot, so he was absent. Her 9-year-old son was a notorious bully. He was overly aggressive. He hit other children, stole items, and was extremely disrespectful towards other adults. When the other parents brought this up, she would make constant excuses for him. "He's just a boy, he's just expressing himself, your kids started it." What made it worse was that the entitled mother would pacify her son's behavior with sweets, toys, and other things that he wanted. Because of this, the other parents and I didn't invite the mother and her son to events that took place outside of Scouts. The entitled mother would often call our home about getting sleepovers or having her son play with our kids, which we were adamant about not happening. If we didn't give in, she said, "You're bullying my son by excluding him. How could you do that to a child?" She also threatened to call the governor for discrimination because she's a Baptist. So late June, the other parents and I were talking about a beach trip to Santa Cruz and bringing our families with us. We talked through everything among the 10 other moms and dads about planning this out. The entitled mother must have overheard what we were saying because she just came over with her son and said, "Entitled mother, can you take my son with you? I have to do something with my husband." Me. "What? Where?" Entitled mother. "To Santa Cruz." Me. No, you and your son are not invited. This is a friends-only trip. Entitled kid, you're a big meanie. Kicks me in the leg and runs away. Entitled mother. Look what you did, child hater. She leaves and chases after him. Because this was a big trip, we decided to go shopping and hit the road on Friday. We had to do lots of shopping in bulk to reasonably feed 12 adults and 18 kids. My wife and I, along with 4 other parents, were watching the cars and keeping the kids occupied. For a brief moment, I turned my attention to my car to turn the AC up cause my kids said that they were hot. I turn over, and the entitled boy is there with his bag and the mom peeling out in her station wagon. We are all just in shock, asking ourselves, is this really happening to us? The boy's mother gave him a note that had his allergies and an emergency phone number. We call no answer. We can't leave the kid here alone. And we're not going to bring him with us, so we opted to call the police. We put the kid in the car to keep him out of the sun, and we made the call. We report the entitled mother for the abandonment of her child. They sent an officer out in 15 to 20-ish minutes. The other parents and I go back to our cars to look out for the police. When we get back, the entitled boy is pulling my 4-year-old daughter's hair. The reason why, the kids had some snacks in the cooler and didn't want to share them with entitled boy. What later proceeded as we were running to the car is 10 of the boys pull the entitled boy off my daughter and proceed to beat him. Now the kids had 2 years of rage towards this kid bottled up inside. So what took place wasn't surprising. The entitled kid is bleeding, crying. He says that we're all mean, and started demanding food from us. He was cussing us out, hitting things, and said, "Entitled boy, I want to go on the trip now." He kept parroting this over and over again. I yelled to him, "Shut up," which only made him cry more. Now I will admit I was probably in the wrong here, but this is one of the few children I have truly hated in my life. The police arrived soon after, and we explained what happened. Apparently, he was dropped off at his father's job. The mother received a child neglect charge. When she saw that our kids beat up hers, she tried to charge our kids for assault. It was dropped because it was self-defense. But all in all, my friends and our kids had a great week in Santa Cruz. Hey there folks, buckle up and get ready for one wild ride I had as an Uber driver. Now let me set the scene for you. It was a typical day, cruising the streets, picking up passengers, and earning those hard-earned bucks. Little did I know that I was about to encounter the infamous Karen, the queen of all Karens. So there I was, minding my own business, when I received a ride request from Karen. The name alone should have given me a heads up, but hey, I'm an optimistic driver, always ready to take on any passenger. I arrived at the pickup location and there she was, standing with an entitled air, ready to hop into my car. Karen hopped in and immediately started barking orders at me. "Take this route," she commanded, pointing in a completely different direction. Now, as an experienced driver, I knew that the suggested route was congested with traffic, so I politely informed her about an alternative route that would get us there faster. Little did I know that this seemingly innocent suggestion would unleash the beast within her. Her eyes widened, and her face turned an angry shade of crimson. "How dare you question my directions?" she fumed, her voice piercing my eardrums. "Just do as I say," she demanded, her voice filled with entitlement. Now I'll admit, I have a bit of a rebellious streak in me, so I decided to take that alternative turn against her wishes. As I drove along the alternative route, Karen's anger escalated. She began hurling insults at me, calling me all sorts of names under the sun. I tried my best to maintain my composure, reminding myself that customer satisfaction is key, but oh boy, was she determined to make my life miserable. And then, out of nowhere, I felt a sharp pain in my back. Karen had assaulted me. She had the audacity to reach from the back seat and physically attack me. I couldn't believe it. I quickly pulled over, my heart pounding, unsure of how to handle this situation. But Karen wasn't done yet. She snatched her phone and dialed 911, screaming into the receiver, "I've been assaulted by my Uber driver. Arrest him immediately." My jaw dropped. This woman had just assaulted me, and now she was playing the victim. The audacity. I pleaded with her to reconsider, explaining that I was the one who had been attacked, but she was determined to see me behind bars. Within minutes, the sound of sirens grew louder, and 2 police cars screeched to a halt beside us. The officers swiftly approached, ready to take action. Karen, with a self-satisfied smirk on her face, pointed at me and declared, "That's him, arrest him." I couldn't believe what was happening. I was the one being falsely accused here. Thankfully, the truth has a way of coming out. As the police listened to both sides of the story, it became apparent that Karen's accusations were baseless. I had witnesses who saw her assault me, and her story had more holes than a slice of Swiss cheese. The officers, seeing through her web of lies, decided to take appropriate action. Karen's smug smile gradually faded as the officers turned their attention to her. They sternly warned her about the consequences of making false accusations and physically assaulting someone. I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication as she stuttered, trying to conjure up more lies to save herself. In the end, justice prevailed. The officers let me off the hook, and Karen was left to face the consequences of her actions. As I drove away, a mix of emotions flooded over me. I felt relieved, angry, and even a little bit amused at the sheer audacity of this encounter. Being an Uber driver, you encounter all sorts of people, and sometimes you come across a Karen who tries to make your life a living nightmare. It's important to stay calm, level-headed, and most importantly, document incidents like these to protect yourself. Always remember, folks, there are some wild rides out there, but with a little bit of luck and a whole lot of patience, you'll make it through. So, that's the crazy story of my encounter with the notorious Karen. Trust me, folks, this is one ride I won't be forgetting anytime soon. Until next time, keep calm, drive safe, and don't let the Karens get you down. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. Allow me to share a personal experience. I'm a 26-year-old non-binary individual with a disability, accompanied by my service dog in training, whom I affectionately call Buddy. Buddy has been trained to alert me when my heart rate becomes dangerously high, preventing me from fainting. Additionally, he provides deep pressure therapy to help stabilize my blood pressure and heart rate. Although these are his main tasks, Buddy is capable of much more. Before continuing the story, it's important to understand the laws regarding service dogs. According to the federal ADA law, to qualify as a service dog, the handler must have a disability, which I do, and the dog must be trained to perform at least one specific task. Furthermore, in my state within the United States, service dogs in training possess the same rights as fully trained service dogs. They are permitted to accompany their handlers anywhere the general public is allowed, without discrimination. Now let's delve into the story. Buddy was in the midst of his first year of training, which typically spans between 2 to 3 years. My partner and I, with the assistance of a professional trainer, were actively involved in his training. Our goal was to expose Buddy to various public environments, and on this particular day, we decided to practice at a local credit union where I held an account. As we entered, Buddy maintained a perfect heel by my side. Our intention was to train him to lay under my legs while I sat in a chair. To get the attention of a bank employee, I offered a friendly smile. She approached us and introduced herself as a manager. However, she immediately diverted her attention towards Buddy instead of addressing me directly, which is a significant breach of protocol. Attempting to redirect her focus, I made several unsuccessful attempts to gain her attention as she continued to engage with Buddy. Being a young dog still in training, Buddy grew excited in response. Swiftly, I corrected his behavior with a firm command of, "Leave it." Finally, the manager acknowledged my presence. Seizing the opportunity, I politely inquired if it would be permissible for us to utilize the chairs in the public lobby for our training session. To my surprise, she froze momentarily before uttering, "No, I'm afraid I can't allow that. Only certified service dogs are permitted." This statement is erroneous for several reasons, as there is no legally required certification, and thus it is unlawful to request one. Promptly, I interjected, informing her, "Actually, in this state, service dogs in training possess the same rights as fully trained ones." Caught off guard, she stumbled over her words and eventually conceded, "Well, he can stay then." Not wishing to escalate the situation, I agreed, suggesting that we engage in alternative training activities. However, the manager immediately displayed a defensive demeanor and retorted, "I cannot permit any training activities in the building. That is strictly prohibited." Recognizing this as a clear violation of my rights, I concocted an excuse, stating that I needed to check a transaction merely to maintain our presence. Throughout my visit, she remained in close proximity, shadowing our every move. It was evident that she intended to remove us from the premises solely because I had a service dog. Once I reached the bank booth, I engaged with the teller, requesting her assistance in retrieving a seemingly insignificant transaction from earlier in the month. I explained that the company never provided me with a receipt, so I needed her to print it for me. The process, including locating the transaction and getting the printers to cooperate, took approximately 30 minutes. Throughout this time, I seized the opportunity to continue training Buddy on how to remain in one place during a transaction and ignore distractions from others. After finally obtaining the printed document, I expressed my sincere gratitude to the teller for her kindness and shot a subtle glance in the manager's direction. The manager, realizing her actions had not gone unnoticed, inquired if I required any further assistance and whether I would be leaving. Although I contemplated engaging in some petty behavior, such as asking about refinancing my car, Buddy was growing bored, so I simply replied, "No, thank you," and departed. The manager did not bid me farewell or wish me a nice day. Following that unpleasant experience, I knew I had to take action to address the issue. Recognizing that this credit union valued its customers, I decided to contact their corporate customer complaints line. Within a minute, I connected with a courteous gentleman on the other end. I recounted the entire ordeal, citing each Ada law and state statute that the manager had violated. The gentleman assured me that he would promptly investigate the matter and placed me on hold for approximately 5 minutes. When he returned, he not only confirmed the breaches of the mentioned laws, but also acknowledged that the manager had violated all of them based on my account. He emphasized, "This is a very serious matter. I cannot simply let it go." Curious about the potential outcome, I asked him what would happen next. He explained that it was likely a higher-ranking individual would visit the credit union to educate all staff members on ADA guidelines and accommodating disabled customers. Satisfied with this response, I thanked him for his assistance and concluded the call. Fast forward 6 months to the present day, my service dog just left yesterday to undergo intensive training at his professional trainer's house, leaving me without a dog by my side. Nevertheless, I needed to deposit some cash, so I made my way to the credit union. Upon entering, I found myself next in line, about to approach the teller's booth, and to my surprise, it was her. The once mean and unpleasant manager had been demoted to a regular bank teller. Concealing my amusement, I wore a wide smile as I walked up to her booth. Unbeknownst to her, she didn't recognize me at all. I felt an overwhelming urge to burst into maniacal laughter, but instead I chose to compliment her on her hair. Swiftly completing my transaction, I exited the credit union, only to encounter a new, kinder manager near the door, who genuinely wished me a pleasant day. So first things first, my girlfriend recommended that I share this story because it's something that everyone might enjoy. So, I decided to post it here under a throwaway account, mostly because my previous posts on my main account would make my real-life identity apparent, and because I do not want an artificial boost to my karma. Growing up, I thought I had a good relationship with my parents, mom and dad, stepdad, and my 3 younger siblings, younger brother 1, younger sister, and younger brother 2. However, around 5th grade, my relationship began to change. I had always excelled in school, so my parents sent me to a private school with excellent test scores and students who had good placements in colleges later on. However, during my last year, I was really excited to go on to a private middle school that all of my friends and I had been accepted into. Unfortunately, at that time, my parents sat me down and explained that they did not have the money to pay for my tuition and had to withdraw younger brother 1 and younger sister's applications to the elementary school I had attended for the same reason, so I would be enrolled in the local public middle school the following year. Towards the end of 5th grade, we were doing science class, and my teacher started our Introduction to Genetics unit. That lesson has stayed with me since because my appearance is so different compared to my parents. As of now, I'm in my 20s, and I share literally no features with my mom. So, I began asking my teacher some very difficult questions about genetics in class. After answering which traits tend to be dominant, she realized where I was going and immediately shut me down. Over that summer, I read pretty much every book I could on the subject before I did something dumb. I went to my dad and asked him if I was adopted. This conversation didn't end well. I don't remember everything that was said, but it escalated very quickly and ended with him hitting me. My dad hit me so hard that he actually broke my right cheekbone. My mom rushed me to the hospital, and I was coached to say that I was accidentally hit by a doorknob, which I eventually had to repeat to Child Protective Services. After a week back from the hospital, my mom and dad revealed to me that he was actually my stepdad. When they were in college, my mom was dating a guy who she said was a real jerk. When they found out she was pregnant, he left her. But my stepdad stepped up and did everything he could, and they put his name on my birth certificate. My mom then explained that when I confronted my stepdad, it really hurt him, and he lashed out in anger. It was wrong, and they both asked for forgiveness. I unfortunately agreed. We seemed to go back to being a somewhat normal family again. But I began to notice things that I didn't before. Whenever my younger siblings needed something, my mom and stepdad would drop everything to help them. Meanwhile, I was told to figure it out myself. For birthdays, I would get next to no attention, usually just a hug from my mom. I didn't even get a cake after I turned 6. Meanwhile, my siblings would get a party and everything they wanted. My stepdad would come back from work and wanted nothing to do with me. Even as a little kid, I was a massive nerd who wanted to go to museums and do all those nerdy kid things. And I had zero interest in sports. My brothers were the exact opposite, and he spent much of his free time playing or watching sports with them. If my brothers wanted to go see a game or something, my stepdad would move heaven and earth to bring them and usually drag me along. If I wanted to see the new Devonian fossil exhibit at the local museum, there was no way I could go because he was busy. Once, he even told me, "Sorry, but that basketball game took up your entire entertainment budget this month." By the way, that was the same game where, when he saw that I brought my copy of Cosmos, he threw it out because I shouldn't have brought a book to a family event. There were several more things my parents did that showed their favoritism when I was younger, but this is already going to be a long post. What I do want to point out is that this wasn't a new behavior that developed after the truth came out. This had been ongoing over the years, and I just chalked it up to me being the eldest sibling. Middle school was absolutely terrible. I was, and still am, an introvert who would usually rather be by himself reading than talking to people. In my old school, I was still the odd one out, but I didn't get singled out for it and had friends. At the public school, I was quickly singled out and bullied. This caused my mental health to decline severely, and my parents refused to intervene because it would toughen you up. I was bullied, but I fought back, and then they became my friends. That's just how guys become friends. Of course, I am sure anyone here can assume correctly that the faculty was about as helpful. I did try to fight back once, and all it did was get 3 different kids to gang up on me and suspend me for 3 days. The only friend I was able to make was an older kid called Devin. Devin was 3 years older than me, but he actually took sympathy on me and decided to protect me from my bullies. Over the next 3 years, my situation at home quickly began to decline. My younger siblings picked up on my parents' apathy and my decreased confidence and began to harass me, If they wanted something I had, they took it. They would call me names and play pranks on me. When I told my parents, they told me I needed to lighten up. Needless to say, this did not help my situation. My parents also became extremely harsh on me, and I did get beaten from time to time. Towards the end of my first year of middle school, I came home from the library and saw a letter from the middle school I wanted to go to. I immediately opened it. It was a letter declining the application for younger brother 1 and younger sister. I did not see anything for me, so I went to my parents. They punished me for opening their mail, but when I pushed it, they told me that younger brother 1 and younger sister did more to deserve going to that middle school. Mind you, at this time, and before, I had near-perfect grades. When I argued that if they could afford to send younger brother 1 and younger sister, then I should be able to go. I was beaten for talking back and opening my parents' mail. I will be honest, during this time I did try self-harm. Whenever I did, my situation would briefly improve. I became the center of my parents' world. Teachers would intervene to stop the bullying, and even some of the kids at school would begin to be friendly to me. But after a week, things would quickly slide back. The only person who was actually there for me in my life was Devin. One day during the early part of 8th grade, I broke down and told Devin about my biological father. I had been having thoughts about why he abandoned me when he found out. How it was partially his fault that my life was the way it was. There was a lot else I said, but that was the key part. During my venting session, I revealed that my mom had let my dad's first and last name slip recently, and I knew his name. So Devin offered to help me research my dad. That day, Devin and I went to his house and began to essentially cyberstalk him. My biological father was, and still is, a college professor at a research university about 200 miles from where we lived. We also found that he was married, and I learned I had another younger sister, and my stepmom was pregnant. That night, Devin and I hatched a plan, which we would carry out the following day. I came to school, and as soon as I stepped off the bus, I went to the high school student parking lot and got into Devin's car, and we left. We arrived at the university around noon. After parking, Devin immediately went to the student center and asked which office my dad worked at and got directions. We went there and he was gone on lunch. But when he came back about an hour later, he saw us sitting outside his office and asked who we were. I remember asking for his name and then asking if he knew my mom. When he confirmed both, I told him who I was and that I believed I was his son. I just wanted to say, as cheesy as it sounds to me looking back, it was Devin who coached me on that. He probably just watched a bad Hallmark drama or something. I remember that he immediately hugged me warmly and started saying, "Oh my God," over and over. He immediately brought us into his office to talk and canceled his classes for the day. After that, Devin left, and my dad took me home and introduced me to his family. My stepmom was surprised. She knew my dad had a son, but a 13-year-old popping out of nowhere is kind of a surprise. Then they explained what happened. According to my dad, he was dating my mom during their senior year of college when she told him she was pregnant. He and my mom were having problems in their relationship, and he suspected she was cheating on him. He was planning on breaking up with her when she told him. He honestly suspected it was an attempt to stay together. So, he told her he would be willing to do a paternity test and co-parent, but that he refused to be in a relationship. It turns out that my mom was cheating on him with my stepdad, and when he had a much more positive response, she cut contact with my dad. When my dad married my stepmom, he told her that he may have had a child, and they decided to look my mom up on Facebook and saw a few pictures of me. Remember how I have no significant features with my mom or stepdad? It turns out I look almost identical to my dad. So, he knew immediately. He had reached out to my mom via Facebook, but she immediately blocked him. He had considered getting a lawyer but figured it would be all but impossible to get custody or even visitation rights without a paternity test, which my mom and stepdad could have blocked. I told him everything that my mom and stepdad had put me through, even more than what has been said above. When I finished, I was crying, and my stepmom was consoling me. After it was all out, my dad wordlessly stood up, went into the next room, and called a lawyer, and then called the police. The police, social services, and child protective services all showed up and took me into custody. To summarize everything, I was taken out of my mom's and stepdad's custody and became a temporary ward of the state. A paternity test was taken, and it confirmed everything that my dad told me. Then I was placed into my dad and stepmom's care, and I was given a restraining order against my mom and stepdad until I reached the age of 18. I won't pretend that everything was perfect. Looking back on it, I did cause some strain on my dad's marriage because he immediately favored me over my half-siblings. My dad and stepmom did recover, and they placed sensible boundaries. I was enrolled in a much better school where I was able to make real friends. I never forgot Devin. We stayed in contact, but due to the distance, our contact isn't as consistent as it used to be. We still talk regularly, though. Devin is doing well. After high school, he became an underwater welder for an oil company, which apparently pays really well. We have met for drinks and to catch up. I asked him why he protected me. He said he wasn't sure, but for whatever reason, when he saw me getting bullied, it just caused something to snap. He also said that he kind of saw me as someone who needed a big brother figure in his life, and that it was the right thing to do. After high school, I went on to college, and I was fairly popular, as my confidence had been completely rebuilt. I majored in biology and minored in geology. I am currently a PhD student working in paleontology. I love it. I get to go on university-sponsored digs. Normally they are in the States, but last year I got to go to South Africa and Namibia. My mom and stepdad reached out to me a few months ago to try and get me to help tutor younger brother 2 and younger sister. Younger sister had dropped out of college a few years ago because it was too difficult for her. Although she wanted to go back and finish her program, and younger brother 2 wants to get into a good college next year, but doesn't have the grades and wants help studying for the American college test. During that conversation, I noticed my heart was beating out of control, and that I was having difficulty breathing. I am certain that it was a panic attack, but I had never had anything like that, so I just hung up on my mom and sat on the couch. The following day, I began to receive a couple of texts from my mom's kids asking for help, and blocked all of their numbers. Afterward, I didn't hear from them until I received a barrage of emails from them on my university email. Essentially, they were apologizing for how they treated me, and wanted to fix things so we could be a family. Originally, I had decided that I wanted to send an email back telling them that I wanted no further contact, and that even hearing from them was causing a traumatic response over a decade later, and that I feel the only reason they are reaching out is because they want a free tutor. I never sent it. Instead, I decided to block them. In April, I went on a dig in Texas and received a call from the police telling me they had been called to my apartment because they had been told that someone had broken in. It was younger brother 1 trying to get in contact with me. I told the police he was not supposed to be there, and I would like trespassing charges pressed. As it was a first offense, he was able to plea bargain it down to 100 hours of community service. I got back home at the end of May, and I haven't heard from them yet. I think they got the idea and decided to stop contacting me. Regardless, I have a strong relationship with my dad. We have spent a long time building that relationship and making up for lost time. I have a good relationship with my younger half-siblings from my dad and stepmom. I play with them and spend a lot of time with them, but there is a fairly big age gap between us. My stepmom and I are on good terms. I'm not sure how to describe our relationship, but I would say that while she didn't completely replace the role of a mom in my life, she did become a motherly figure. I have no idea if that makes sense, but it is the best way I can phrase it. I am not entirely sure how to end this. There might be something like a message here, but probably not. I really did just feel that I should share my story. Although I have been sitting here, and after initially writing this, when I was recalling the abuse I suffered and started to proofread it, I started to feel extremely anxious. I think that I may have some suppressed trauma and will be looking to get therapy. Back in the early 2000s, our town was getting a makeover. As part of this makeover, a new building was built in a car park, utterly replacing it. This new building contained the registrar office, library run by Nottinghamshire Council, and a few other things. The library used to be located in the neighboring listed building. Not long after the library relocation, I decided to pay them a visit, and was amazed at how amazing it was. With this relocation came a new system for rental. Next to the entrance was a self-service system. Instead of going to the main counter where the staff scan your membership card, scan the book's barcode and then stamp the return date in the book, the new system uses RFID. You scan your membership card on the machine and then place as many books into the machine as will fit. Not one book at a time, but you could scan 10 books in one go if you could to save time. In the end, it gives you a receipt listing the books and the return date, etc. Then you just leave. There was even a machine for returns. You scan your card, then the books, and then put the books into the return bin. We'll come back to this machine in a moment. I glanced around the aisles and found myself in the comic aisle. I thought, sure, why not something for a quick read? Only for my utter surprise, they had a few manga on the shelves. I say a few, because there were only 4 books of the same series. I even remember the name of the series, as it was the series that got me into reading manga in general. Chibi Vampire. I grabbed them and laid them on the floor while I grabbed a few other comics. A Sonic the Hedgehog, and another that I don't remember. Just then someone says as I was standing up, "Hey, give me those manga. I want them." I looked to see who it was, and it was this lad, still in his school years, somewhat rotund, heavy on the acne and thick-framed glasses. He was holding a pile of manga himself. I said sorry, but that I'm getting them. I walked away and headed for the science fiction section to see if there was something of interest that I can take my time reading. Along the way, he was following me and demanding that I hand over the manga. I ignored him as I browsed the science fiction section. I eventually just grabbed a random book as he kept demanding the manga, even switching to saying that I stole them from his pile. I then went to scanner machine and scanned the books, but one of the manga didn't scan when I checked the receipt. Even after scanning the books, he was still following me, demanding the books. I went to the main counter and spoke to the lady there. I showed her my receipt and the books. "Ah yes, sorry about that," she said. "Some books slip through and haven't been updated with new system yet. Give me a moment, please." As she reached into a desk drawer, the lad started demanding she returns the books that I stole to him. As she pulled out an RFID sticker and slapped it into the manga, she asked him what he's talking about. He said that I stole the manga from him and refused to give them back, etc. After she registered the newly upgraded manga into the system, she looked at him. "If that's true, then it can be sorted out." She looked at me. "Did you steal the books from him?" "I didn't." And I explained what happened. "I understand." She looked at him. "We can check the cameras. If he did steal them from you, I can return them to you. However, if you've been harassing him, then I'll ask you to leave without any books." He stuttered and said that it wasn't necessary, and walked away. The lady asked me for my card so that she can scan the book out for me while they're at it. So I left with my books. Here's something interesting. I enjoyed the manga and wanted to read more, so when I returned them to the library, I asked if there were any more of the series, but when the lady checked the system, those 4 were the only ones in the entirety of Nottinghamshire. So I decided to just buy them off Amazon. Usually the books were imported from the United States to here in the United Kingdom. However, one book was over in France. When it arrived, I noticed that it had many customs stamps on them. The book had started its journey in France. Instead coming straight over to the UK, it went up to Germany, through Poland, Ukraine, into Russia, all the way across Russia and down into China, then Australia, then Western US, across to Eastern US, then finally into the UK. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences and opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.